I've got a guest speaker coming today and a little bit of next week. The best lines in his talk are next week, but I want to build you up. I want to share with you first before Devin turns this on. I want to share a little bit about who's going to be here as a guest speaker today. His name is Jack Rushton. How many have heard of Jack Rushton? Okay, Jack Rushton is a good friend of mine who in his 21st year ago, 20 years ago in August, Jack Rushton was serving as the stake president in Orange County. He was a CES director. He was a fluent speaker all over the church. He was a great athlete. He was a great piano player. He was an incredible guy. Everybody loved Jack Rushton. Great family, kids getting ready to go on missions, having just a great time. Raised in the mining fields of Nevada. I mean, went on to BYU, had just a great life, great story. He was in a surfing accident off the coast of California in August of 1989. And on his last run, the last time out to the ocean, on his way back in, he was on his board and he somehow hit some kind of a rock. He doesn't remember what he hit, but snapped his spinal column right up here, very high in his neck. And he hasn't breathed a single breath of air on his own in nearly 21 years. He hasn't moved a muscle from here down. He has no feeling from here down. He doesn't feel anything. He has no movement of any kind. He can't breathe on his own. He couldn't speak until he learned how to re-communicate. And Jack Rushton was now turned into a vegetable, except his mind was still intact. And he worked and he worked and he worked until he finally conquered his self-defeatist, poor pity old me, I'm finished for life, what could life do for me attitude. Took him about a year to get over all of his self-defeating attitudes of life. Luckily, he's married to a gem of a woman. You'll meet her a little bit. You'll see her in the audience today. An incredible woman who has never treated him as a quadriplegic, never treated him as less than what he is. And this man regrouped after he discovered he really wasn't going to change. His life wasn't going to get any better. And this man has now become one of the most incredible writers and church people in the world. He goes all over the world when he could. He can't travel much now. I invited him here. I invited him to BYU Provo. He comes to BYU Education Week. It's his only time out of Orange County. It's hard to travel. And he couldn't come this far, so he declined. But I talked him into taping an audience talk for us. And he's now going to give us a leadership lesson. And you're going to see the famous Jack Rushton in action. I want you to watch for the 7 steps. I want you to watch what he does. We'll finish it next week with really the punchlines. So today's just going to be a quick round of the introduction of this. Jack Rushton he sends out observations about every 10 days. He writes what he calls observations. He's probably read more books than all of you in this room combined since he's gone down. He's so thankful to be a quadriplegic in these days because they have voice-activating equipment. He can turn pages. He can read books. He can write books. He can write articles. He's written several books. He records things for all the church. His observations are incredible. Let me just share one with you quick. I've got to share this fast. I mean, if anybody wants to be on his email list, you let me know and I'll forward these to you because it's incredible. He's now been the gospel doctrine teacher in his ward for the last 16 years. He's been a patriarch in his stake for the last 16 years. He's been a home teacher for the last 17 years in his ward with perfect record. You can see this quadriplegic, but as a patriarch, they have to, of course, lay his hands on their head and hold his hands on their head as he gives the blessings to them. But you'll find there's nothing wrong with his mind. There's nothing wrong with his spirit. There's nothing wrong. My point of this, I want you to watch him today and next week, and I want you to just say to yourself, if Jack Rushton he's probably changed more lives since he's been a quadriplegic than anybody ever could have without it. Because the whole world gets his emails. The whole world knows about Jack Rushton. Everybody in the church in California and the Western world knows about Jack Rushton, the story of this man. He's one of the oldest living, totally life support quadriplegics on the planet Earth today. You'll hear him tell the story jokingly about how I decided I could be, what could I be the best at? And he said, I finally decided I could be the best quadriplegic in the world. Then he said, wouldn't you know it? You know, Christopher Reeves falls off his horse, and so I'm now competing with Superman. You'll hear him tell this story. Okay, Dr. Devin, let's turn this on. We'll go to the end of class with it, and then we'll finish next week. Because you'll take good notes and think about this man.
Well, brothers and sisters, when I was a young man, a good friend of mine took me aside and taught me a most significant lesson about leadership. He said, Jack, a herd of turkeys led by a lion will always prevail over a herd of lions led by a turkey. What follows tonight are some principles that I have learned over the years as a semi-normal walking around person and as a paralyzed person on life support about leadership. And I think if we could implement some of these principles in our lives, that they would help us to never be turkey leaders over the lions that have been entrusted to our care, whether it be in the home or in the church or in the world. There is an axiom that's been around for many years that is so very true, and simply stated it is that any organization is but the lengthened shadow of its leader. And there's another equally true maxim, that being good or pretty good is the greatest obstacle to being great or truly excellent. Maybe some of you have been the way I was as a young man in your lives. I had a great desire to learn how to do something really well. Maybe to do it better than anybody else. But it was not to be. I thought it would be in sports. But there was always somebody that could jump higher and run faster and was more coordinated, so I turned to music. I love music, and I thought maybe I could really do well, and I did okay, but there was always somebody that was better. So I turned to academics. Maybe I'll be able to do it in academics. There was always somebody smarter, and the sad thing is that it was usually a girl. And then one August day, I was body surfing at Laguna Beach with my 16-year-old son. And in one split second, I became a quadriplegic on life support. And a few weeks after the accident, I was lying in the trauma center and kind of still a little bit in shock as to what had happened. And then this thought came to my mind: Jack, you have really done it. You have really lowered the odds. Maybe you can be the best quadriplegic on life support that ever lived. And boy, it felt so good, and I thought I was doing well. And then when you know, Christopher Reeve goes out and breaks his neck. And for the next 9 years, I'm in competition with Superman. You just can't win. And I never apologized for wanting to be the best quadriplegic on life support that ever lived. I suppose that none of us will probably be the best at anything, because there will always be some Superman out there that will do better than we do. But I do think we owe it to ourselves and to those that we lead to be the very, very best that we can be. When I was a young boy, 14 years old, I was part of an American Legion baseball team that won the championship of the state of Nevada. And we earned the right to go to Lodi, California to go to the Western Regional Tournament, representing our state. It was the most exciting thing that had ever happened in our little community in Nevada. And but the regional tournament was 2 weeks away, so our coaches, wanting to keep us sharp, and in practice scheduled a twilight doubleheader one Saturday with a team from Salt Lake City, Utah. Well, we were excited about going to Lodi, California. We weren't too excited about playing the team from Utah. We took them lightly. They beat us badly in both ends of the doubleheader. Our coaches were upset. We weren't. We laughed it off. We were the champions. And we still thought we were pretty good. Well, I got home that night, and my dad was standing out by the back gate waiting for me. Now, my dad and I had a very close relationship. I think that one of the great desires as a young boy, and really I think throughout my life, was to please my dad, to make him proud of me. I never wanted to disappoint him, and when I saw him out by the gate, I kind of gulped. I didn't know what to expect. He put his arm around my shoulders and opened the gate and walked with me to the back door. He said, "Jake, when you put that baseball uniform on, you're supposed to be a baseball player. And if you are not going to play as hard as you can, if you are not going to try to win, then don't put on the uniform." That's all he said. Since then, I have worn many different uniforms. The uniform of a missionary, of a student, of a husband, as a father, and many more uniforms as well as all of you have. And then one day, 20 years ago, I was called upon to put on another uniform. The uniform of a quadriplegic on life support. And I didn't want to wear that uniform. It didn't feel good. It was uncomfortable. I didn't want to play in that game. And there were times that I just wanted to somehow rip that uniform off and get out of the game and just curl up in a ball and not try anymore. And invariably, I would feel my dad's arm around my shoulders, and I would try harder. I would play hard and play to win. And although I may not ever have been the best, I believe that in trying, that my own life has been blessed, as well as my family, and maybe a few others as well. My son Mike when he was a senior in high school. Was a starting running back on the high school football team. One day, I was going to work, walking out the front door, and there's a guest bathroom down here. It has the biggest mirror in the house, and as I started out the door, I noticed Mike in the bathroom. He was stripped to the waist. He had been lifting weights, running, and he was now posing and flexing. And boy, he did look good. I mean, he had six-pack abs and muscles rippling, and I could tell that he was quite admiring and enjoying what he was saying. And I don't know why, but as I walked out the door, I felt prompted to say, Mike, if the day ever comes that you spend as much time developing your mind and your spirit as you are now developing your body, you will be awesome. Well, Mike is now a judge on the Riverside County, California Superior Court. And in my prejudiced fatherly mind, he truly is awesome. His life to me is a witness, a testimony to the truthfulness of the eternal law of the harvest. I have seen Mike reap what he has sowed. Nothing ever came particularly easy for him. He's very bright, but he was blessed to never feel that he was particularly gifted or intelligent. And he had to work hard for everything that he ever got. And through that hard work, he became an excellent deputy district attorney in Riverside County for 16 years. And now is working hard to be an effective judge. In talking to him one time and asking him about what it takes to be a really good trial lawyer, he said, Dad, I really do believe that the most important qualities that one could have that would want to do this is a work ethic, the ability and the desire to just flat out work hard, to prepare meticulously and in depth, and to take nothing for granted. He felt that those qualities were far, far more important than how prestigious one's law school was or what his total GPA might have been. About 2 or 3 months after my injury, I was in a rehabilitation hospital. One day I was lying in my hospital bed staring up at the ceiling and counting the holes in the acoustical tile, and all of a sudden my older brother walked in. He's the one that taught me how to play football, baseball, basketball. We competed against each other more hours than I could ever imagine during our years together. He walked over and he looked down at me and he said, Jake, what do you like to do the best now that you can't do anything? Aren't brothers wonderful? And without even pausing, I said, I like to breathe. I learned. early on that if you could just breathe, that everything else in life was pretty much just icing on the cake. But then I also learned that if all there was to life was breathing, that it didn't make for much of a life. I had a good friend that was a physical therapist, and he spent a lot of time with me and was watching my struggle and trying to adjust to this physical condition and a totally new way of life. And finally he said, "Jack, you have got to accept about your condition, your situation, that over which you have no control and can never change, and you've got to accept that. And having accepted that, you need to try with all of your heart to discover every talent, ability, and capacity that you have left, and then develop it to the highest degree possible." And you know, that was the best advice that I had ever received up to that time. But lurking in the back of my mind was always the thought, what talent do I have? What capacity? I mean, I can't even turn my head. All I can do is blink my eyes and open my mouth. And then a few days after that conversation, Joanne and I and some friends went to a Chinese restaurant, and they brought out the fortune cookies, and Joanne broke mine open and pulled out the little slip and read it to me, and it said, "Your talents are still intact. Use them." And I thought Joanne had just made it up. But she let me read it, and it was straight from Confucius. Anyway, after those two conversations, it was incredible to me what began to happen. Within just a few weeks, I was called to be a stake patriarch. A paralyzed patriarch. How could that be? And then our bishop called me to teach our gospel doctrine class. A lesson every Sunday, impossible. And then opportunities to speak in many, many different venues kept coming. And I kept accepting, and then I was called to be a home teacher once again, which I dearly have always loved to do. And then with the advent of better computer technology and great voice recognition software, I was able to begin to be creative and productive again, to read and to write and to research, and really to feel whole and at peace and with hope for the future. And I learned for myself the truthfulness of the line from the old Civil War movie Shenandoah that President Monson often quotes. If we don't try, we don't do. And if we don't do, then why are we here? I have also learned, brothers and sisters, that any meager success that I have ever had as a leader throughout my life has been because I have been able to surround myself with brothers and sisters that have different talents, different strengths, that are smarter than I am, and that I can totally trust to get the job done without micromanaging them. You know, I've been living on life support for the last 20 years, and I literally, my life is in the hands of my family and caregivers. And there absolutely is no room for error. And I trust them with all my heart. And each day I really am living on the edge. My 16-year-old son, John, that pulled me out of the ocean and really saved my life, was such a great teenager. And he wanted to get heavily involved in my care. He was the only kid in the high school that about 10 o'clock at night would tell his friends, I gotta go home, and put my dad to bed. Anyway, Joanne taught him all of the life-saving things and how to troubleshoot the ventilator and any problems that occur. And we had a lot of trust in John, and so he would sleep down in my bedroom with me many nights out of the week so that Joanne could get some rest. And I did trust him. I thought he was worthy of that trust. But there were two questions that I never wanted to have answered. Number one, if something did go wrong, would he wake up? And number two, if he woke up, would he have enough presence of mind to take care of the problem and keep me alive? Well, one night about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, we were both sleeping soundly, but all of a sudden I woke up out of a deep sleep and knew that I wasn't breathing right. It just didn't feel good, but before I could say anything, this hose popped off of my trach, and that was it. I quit breathing, and I couldn't make a sound. Thankfully, the alarm started ringing. It's a very sharp, beeping, piercing noise, and so I was comforted in the thought that John would surely hear that, and I glanced over at him, and he didn't budge a bit. He was out, and I thought, this is it. I'm a goner. I'm going into the spirit world, but John's getting a good night's rest. Just before I faded away, I had enough presence of mind to offer a prayer. It was the shortest but most heartfelt prayer I've ever offered. I simply said, Father, please bless John that he will wake up and save my life. And I no sooner uttered that prayer in my mind than John leaped out of bed like he was shot out of a cannon and ran across the room as fast as he could, picked up the telephone and said, hello. Well, I'm still here, so you know that it had a happy ending. But you just really got to trust those people around you. Now, there is not, in my own mind, enough money in the world to pay somebody like Joanne to be on your leadership team. She has inspired me and motivated me and made me realize that I could do things that I thought were absolutely impossible, that I wouldn't even have tried without her encouragement. Now, many people have got the gift of the Holy Ghost to guide and direct them, but the Lord, knowing me as He does, felt that I needed more than the Holy Ghost, so he gave me Joanne. And what a blessing it has been. You know, over the last 20 years, I can't think of one single time that she has ever treated me as though I were handicapped in any way. She has never, ever let me feel that she had any pity, that poor old Jack can't do anything. I've always had the opposite message, that I must never use my physical condition as an excuse for not trying and doing and working as hard as I can. Joanne, you might imagine that over these last 20 years we've had to make some major adjustments in our marriage relationship. Now you've all heard of child abuse and spousal abuse and mental abuse, and physical abuse, but Joanne has been so tough on me over the years that I've had to create another category. I call it quad abuse. And it began early on. I was in the intensive care unit in the trauma center at Mission Viejo. It's about 4 days into the injury, and I was still kind of traumatized. And all of a sudden, Joanne appeared at my bedside with a big smile on her face. She had a can of shaving cream in one hand and a Gillette double-edged razor in the other. My entire life passed before my eyes. This was a much more harrowing experience than my accident at the beach. As soon as I was able to talk, I convinced her to buy an electric razor, and she did, but she went one step further. She bought an electric toothbrush as well, and I have learned that it can become a lethal weapon as she brushes my teeth and watches her favorite TCM movie. I'm then wanting to be very thorough. She bought some red hot cinnamon mouthwash, and she had me sip up a big mouthful, and I did. Then she realized that she had to put in the wash. She's a great multi-tasker. The wash led to something else. 10 minutes later, she comes back into the bedroom. My eyes are bulging out of my socket. My face is scarlet. Anyway, she suctions that mouthwash out. A couple of teeth come out. Well, anyway, and then she's got these little scissors, and I suppose all women have them, but I didn't know that. And she is always nipping away at the hair in my ears, and it grows overnight. If I can get that hair in my ears to grow on my head, I would be some good-looking guy. And so there's no, it is relentless. And I would put my ears up against anybody. Here as being the cleanest, you can look at it. And then Joanne's afraid I'll grow out of this wheelchair. It's quite an expensive chair, and I don't get a lot of exercise. So she's very careful what I eat. And when Joanne puts me on a diet, I can't cheat. And I could go on, but if I ever want to see Taco Bell again, or eat the great dessert that she's prepared tonight, I better quit. What do you think, Joanne?
Definitely.
That's what I think. Well, what is my next point? Joanne?
You have the opportunity of serving the
Oh, yes, yes. That's just what I was going to say. A number of years ago, I had the great opportunity to be trained as a trainer in a skill-based leadership philosophy called servant leadership. It was developed by two Stanford professors by the name of Zenger and Miller. Recently I learned